Can Missouri football go undefeated on the road this season?
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso and the central scrutinizer of Missouri Tigers football and basketball, braving this tornado watch here in mid-Missouri to give you all that juicy Mizzou football and basketball content that you oh so desire on the regular basis. Well, fortunately, I am here to peddle it for you once again. And you know what? Coming up on today's show, Jaden Quaintance, a former five-star recruit in basketball that the Tigers were all over, came up a little bit short, did Dennis Gates and company. Well, he's back on the market again in the portal. Going to talk about him a little bit later in the show, but let's start off by talking about Missouri football, because I was just thinking, you know, as I often do, doing a little thought experiment about our Missouri Tigers. I thought, what is a good year for Missouri football? Well, I wrote down 5 things. Number 1, beat Kansas. Yes, Missouri is playing KU for the first time in 15 years this coming fall in week 2, by the way. So, yeah, to say that's an important game would be an understatement. For those of you who are too young, maybe you're a current Mizzou student, to not totally be aware of how important this rivalry is, believe me, it's not just the basketball thing. In fact, this is where it all started. In fact, number 2 on my list is also beat KU. It truly is the only must-win game on the schedule. This is not a drill, folks. Missouri has to win this game in 2025. But number 3, obviously just win all the other non-conference games in general. That gets you to 4-0. And 4th on the list, I think Missouri needs to win 2 SEC home games. And at first glance, that may not seem like the biggest bar in the world until you look at who Missouri is playing at home this season. South Carolina, Alabama, Texas A&M, and Mississippi State. Now, most of us are going to write down a W in permanent ink next to Mississippi State at the moment. But again, South Carolina, Alabama, and Texas A&M. I think Missouri's got to win at least one of those games for this to be considered a successful season. Which one are you feeling the most confident in? Because based on last season, you can't feel overly confident, I don't think, about any of those. And finally, number 5 got me to a point that I hadn't totally realized yet, which is with this bizarre Missouri schedule, 8 home games, 4 road games, Missouri genuinely, despite the fact that all 4 of those road games are SEC road games, they can win them all, believe it or not. Auburn, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, Arkansas, all games that Missouri won at home last season. Now, none of them were easy. That's for darn sure. Auburn, of course, Brady Cook had to literally come out of the hospital to come win that game, a comeback victory for Missouri. Vanderbilt, of course, Missouri won that game in double overtime. Oklahoma, Drew Pyne. By the way, I'll have something about Drew Pyne here in just a minute. But the famous Drew Pyne comeback game, of course, Zion Young strips it with about 30 seconds left or so. The scoop and score, I should say, for Zion Young. I'm forgetting who stripped the ball. Forgive me at the moment here. But the point here is even the Arkansas game was nip and tuck, a game the Tigers end up winning by 7 points. But still, you got to say there's at least a chance. I'm not saying it's likely, but there's at least a chance that Missouri goes 4-0 on the road this season, goes undefeated away from Faurot Field. When is the last time that happened? Well, actually 2013, that great Missouri Tigers team that won famously in Georgia and everywhere else it played on the road that season, lost its only regular season game at home to South Carolina and Steve Spurrier that particular season. Before that, correct me if I'm wrong, all you Mizzou historians, I think you've got to go all the way back to 1960, where the last time Missouri had won all of its regular season road contests. So, again, bottom line here, the more I look at this schedule for Missouri, of course, it's favorable like it was last season, but it's actually more favorable this season that the easier games are on the road. This might be an even better schedule setup for Missouri than it was last season. And for all the talk of Missouri had a soft schedule, again, I don't think it's going to matter when it comes down to the 12-team playoff. Tigers simply need to go 10-2 or better, and they're in. It's as simple as that. And by the way, I mentioned Drew Pyne. Well, Drew Pyne has entered the transfer portal. And yes, we will always have that Oklahoma comeback. We'll also have one of the great gifts of all time after Blake Craig made a long field goal in the Music City Bowl, and Drew Pyne celebrated by, well, he basically celebrated Blake Craig's leg by pantomiming a third leg of his own, if you catch my drift there. So Pyne seemed like a great teammate. Again, we'll always have that incredible pass to Theo Weiss in the Oklahoma game, among some other incredible plays in the fourth quarter by Pyne and Missouri. So all good thoughts and wishes there, but shouldn't be a huge shocker that he's entering the portal, considering that at this point it's pretty clear he's third in the pecking order behind Bo Prabula and Sam Horn in one order or another. And listener Mary writes in with a random thought, and you know what, by the way, I've been thinking maybe my female portion of the audience has gone up lately. We're still sitting at 4%. I hate to say it, 4.3% to be exact according to YouTube, so I can't round up to 5% yet. I hate to say it. But what do I have to do, ladies, honestly? Do I have to go full Pat McAfee and go sleeveless on this show or something? Really up the sex appeal? Is that what I have to do here? But no, in all seriousness, folks, listener Mary says, random thought, I'm not concerned about the offensive line because they go up against freaks and beasts every day. Well, again, thanks, Mary, for juicing up the numbers once again. But, I think you make a great point here. It definitely helps that the three new members of the offensive line for Missouri and, well, Connor Tollison being out right now, really a fourth guy in there as well, at least for the moment. There's a lot to work out for the Tigers, and indeed, going up against great competition, Missouri, I think, will have about as good of a defensive line as there's going to be in the SEC this upcoming season. So, yeah, Mary, it definitely helps, no question. I'll just say this. With three new starters to break in and Connor Tollison, the Missouri starting center, coming off of a pretty serious ACL injury, obviously, a serious knee injury, I should say. Brandon Jones, the Missouri offensive line coach, if it all works out this season, he is going to earn his money, that's for sure. And, Jones is a very well thought of guy. If he can pull it off this season, heck, Jackson Cantwell, come on down among all the other great offensive line recruits out there. We'll take all we can get. And as I said at the top of the show, Jaden Quaintance, the former five-star high school recruit, is back on the market. Seemed like Missouri narrowly missed out during his high school recruitment, so this could possibly be a second chance for Dennis Gates and Mizzou. I'll tell you, if I think he's worth what is sure to be a high price coming up here in just a little bit. But first, get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. It is Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product information to help you get the job done right. And whenever you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for you trade pros that are looking for an even greater edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That is supplyhouse.com. And just a couple quick corrections from yesterday's program. My mistake when I said the Cardinals were 4-0 yesterday. I just assumed that they were going to hold on to that Monday lead against the Los Angeles Angels. You see, kids, this is why you don't make assumptions, something I've been leaning a lot on lately. And also, I don't know why I said road to hoe yesterday a couple times. I'm aware that it's row to hoe. What can I say? Sometimes when you're in front of this microphone, you got a clock going, all that stuff. Occasionally I lose my mind and think, I guess you could hoe a road instead of a row in your garden. So my mistake there, I'm sure that drove my mother completely insane. So we're all good here now, aren't we, Mom? A strong member of the 4.3%. But anyway, let's talk about Jayden Quaintance, who obviously was a big-time high school prospect. By the way, despite taking the Jonte Porter route, meaning that this past season at Arizona State actually should have been his senior year of high school. He entered early. Hey, guys, a lot of guys enter the NBA early. How many guys enter high school? Or excuse me, how many guys enter college early? Well, Jaden Quaintance was one of those few examples. And during his freshman season, he was about what I expected, to be honest. A guy who really lacked, frankly, a lot of polish offensively, to say the least. But defensively, just an absolute menace. I mean, he could certainly, if Missouri is interested in the portal, as the Power Mizzou Twitter account seemed to hint at here, not even hint at. I'll just quote from it here. Power Mizzou tweeted out recently, visited Mizzou out of high school, definitely worth monitoring, would be very, in all caps, pricey. We're talking maybe the $2 million range, something like that. So Missouri paid Bo Prabula reportedly about $1.5 million for this upcoming season to play quarterback for the Tigers. So it just tells you that the upper end of the basketball market is getting pretty pricey these days as well. But again, back to Quaintance specifically, not only would he be obviously a defensive-oriented, the type of big man that I really want, but he wouldn't just be a shot blocker and or rim protector, which he definitely is, by the way, averaged 2.6 a game this past year, but also somebody who at that size, I think Quaintance is 6'9", 6'10", can just cover a ton of ground on the perimeter, and he can also rebound the basketball at a high rate too. I mean, the only thing that's concerning here with Quaintance is while he's not a polished offensive player, and I don't really expect him to be at this age, it's his free throw shooting that is really concerning to me. 48% last year. But what's worse than that, it's not just that he made a low percentage of his free throws, he didn't take all that many. And especially for a guy who is the quality of athlete that he is, the type of body that he has, the fact that he has the same free throw rate as a lot of guys who played on the perimeter for the Sun Devils last season, well, that tells me that he's probably shying away from contact a little bit in the paint because he's afraid to go to the free throw line. That's not a great sign. That's something he's really got to get past. But even despite this, well, he is expected by a lot of people to be possibly a lottery pick in the 2026 NBA draft when he is indeed eligible. So this is likely a one-year proposition for Missouri or any other team that happens to get Quaintance. And by the way, NBADraft.net, for example, has him right now as the 8th pick in the 2026 draft. Obviously, incredibly early for that type of deal, especially when there is another pretty major variable here for Quaintance, which is that at the end of the season, with just a few games left, Quaintance tore his ACL. He recently, a couple weeks ago, reportedly underwent successful surgery to repair said ACL, and, well, the word is he should be cleared by September. The thing is, I'm not questioning that he'll be cleared to play basketball next season. That's still a pretty aggressive timeline, I would say, for getting back onto the basketball court. Certainly not impossible. We've seen guys do it. I do think there's another thing that, usually those guys, sure, they can come back a lot of times these days from an ACL injury. I'm talking basketball and football here, really. But usually from my experience, it's year 2, the second year from the comeback, when they've really gotten back into game shape, that type of deal. And most importantly, really just learned how to trust that knee and get it out of the back of your head once again. So don't get me wrong, I would definitely take Quaintance. If he's a Tiger, this one way or the other, I'll be thrilled. There's no doubt about it. But he does come with some injury concerns. Listen, he's a young man, and ACL reconstruction has come such a long way here in recent years. It's kind of astonishing, especially compared to my childhood, that type of thing. But that free throw shooting, that lack of polish offensively, you do worry if he's a guy who could be played off the floor at times if you do a hack of Jayden, that type of deal. I don't know how much that happened at Arizona State, if at all, but him shying away from contact, that's the biggest worry to me. The thing is, hey, C.Y. Young, apparently he's the shot doctor. Heck, he's turned Kobe Brown from a 30% some odd three-point shooter to a 40+% three-point shooter his senior year. Sean East, same deal, just all of a sudden was great from three-point range his senior year. Maybe the shot doctor will have a little bit of medicine for Jayden Quaintance as well. If so, if he could even become go from 48% to, say, 65, what a difference that could make on so many different levels. And once again, just for the sake of emphasis, I should say, Jaden Quaintance, he's a guy that if you're a Missouri fan, you take him in a heartbeat. I really don't know what a fair market price is for a player like Quaintance, but it's not my money. There's no salary cap right now, so by all means, give him what he wants, because at least from my perspective, easy for me to say counting other people's money, but for real, people like Quaintance at that size, at that age, who move like he does are rare, to say the least. So for as much of actual, real, special offensive basketball skill as he may lack right now, just his pure athleticism and size alone could be plenty to make up for it on the defensive end, especially when I think that's something that Missouri really, really needs moving forward. And coming up on the show, one player who I brought up recently is off the portal market for Missouri. And also, Caleb Grill will be going to San Antonio, just not probably in the capacity that he really wanted. Let's talk about all that in just a little bit. First, though, you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Well, between dining out and online shopping, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO. And Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. Track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. Plus, when I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery, for example. Well, now I budget smarter and save more. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. So Nick Graves, the 6'3 guard formerly of Charlotte, one of a couple guys I brought up that Missouri had been in contact with. I said his numbers didn't blow my socks off. Well, he's ended up at Creighton, which is a pretty good landing spot, you have to say. So obviously Creighton's socks were knocked off by something there. So obviously they see something that Missouri and Creighton obviously saw that maybe I didn't at first glance. But by the way, Caleb Grill is going to be in the college three-point shootout. Here, according to the Mizzou press release, Grill is one of 8 players invited to participate in the three-point championship at the 36th annual State Farm College Slam Dunk and Three-Point Championships. The contest is slated for Thursday, April 3rd at Frost Bank Center in San Antonio and will be televised on ESPN at 6 o'clock. So again, tomorrow, Thursday, 6 o'clock, ESPN, Caleb Grill in the three-point shootout. That should be fun to watch. And by the way, of course, the transfer portal is always fun to watch. And one reason Aiden Shaw may have ended up in Boston College, a note here, I didn't realize this, but his sister is apparently a student at Harvard. So there is another plus for the young man, getting to be closer to his sister. And also, again, speaking of following the portal, Mechie Johnson from Cleveland, Ohio, originally has a chance and is going to do something that even Akron, Ohio's LeBron James has never done. Yes, this would be like if LeBron, after going from Cleveland to Miami to back to Cleveland, if he had then decided to go back to Miami once again. Well, that's what Mechie Johnson has done. After 2 years at Ohio State, 2 years at South Carolina, Johnson transferred back to Ohio State for a 5th year, and believe it or not, is transferring back to South Carolina for a 6th season of college basketball. So again, Ohio State to South Carolina to back to Ohio State, and now back to South Carolina once again. Wild, weird stuff, as the great Ed McMahon might say. But that is certainly an eye raiser, to be sure. But I will say this, for as easy it is to make fun of all of that kind of stuff, I read a little bit into Johnson's background, and he has his own specific reasons for wanting to do this, and for as bizarre it is to all of us on the outside looking in, who really cares? It's a fun thing. It's a fun little historical note, though, that's for sure, that again, Mechie Johnson did something that LeBron even could not. And thanks, as always, for making Locked On Mizzou your first listen every day. For your second listen, please check out Locked On College Basketball with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. The odds are saying Duke is the easy favorite to win the whole thing here. I got to say, I think Houston has a real chance. I think Auburn has a real chance. Of course, Florida too. But my friends at FanDuel, sure, saying that Duke is your overwhelming favorite here at the moment. But regardless of what you think, check out the rest of the world of college basketball. It is Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So until next time, I'm John Miller. This has been Locked On Mizzou.